Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael St. John, and I'm your Third Thursday host. I just wanted to first thank Charlie Szymanski, who coordinated with me and does a fantastic job in the education program to put this together. Ella did the social media poster this time around. Gary Ferris manages the the MRA website. And I'd also like to congratulate Allison Sheets, who's the new president of the Mountain Rescue Association. And Kobe Pohl tonight is in the room with me here, helping me host the Zoom. Fire evacuation, certainly for a lot of the Western mountain rescue counties, and particularly in California, but certainly not limited there, has been something that we've been involved in for years, but certainly in recent years, it's taken on a whole new sense of priority. And one of the leading counties out there is Nevada County. And we're really pleased tonight to have Jerry Weidler with Nevada County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue. And he's has a unique perspective into how to use the latest technology, CalTopo, to help coordinate and manage evacuations. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and unshare my screen and give Jerry the floor.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hopefully we can show you some of the ways that we use CalTopo, and hopefully we can answer some questions and possibly get some future ideas on how to improve this process that's ever evolving. So thank you, Michael, for inviting me to come on here and do this. So basically, am I okay to share the screen now?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, hopefully everybody can see that. A thumbs up from somebody to make sure I can see it. Awesome, thank you. So the way Nevada County utilizes SAR-Topo is a little bit different. Every county uses it differently. CalTopo's general options for using it for fire evacuations have greatly increased over the last year or two. I know they've been putting a ton of work into making it more user-friendly. And so we've tried to go a little bit further to tailor it to our county for our needs, since we tend to run anywhere between 80 and 100 fires per season that we're responding to. And some of those are, quickly forward progress is stopped, and some turn into some bigger fires. So essentially with CalTopo, first thing that we do is, we basically place a marker as to where the fire is going to be. One of the things that we like to see with CalTopo is the wind plot. That kind of gives us a general idea of what the wind's doing right away. Your base layer is important when you're using the app in the field. The more data you put on that base layer, the less cell signal your app has out in the field, the harder it is to load. So we try and keep it simple. We use a roads only, and we try and make it where it's pretty black and white for our people out in the field to see on the app if they're actually using it. So the wind plot is a good one. The current fire activity with our live satellites, that's another good one to use. Obviously, we have no fires in this area right at the moment. And then going down to, I already lost it, structures is another way to look at your density and see what and where your fire is, which direction it's going, and what do you have in the way of that path. As you know, this demo fire is in a fairly rural area. There's some structures in there, and nice feature with SAR-Topo is, again, you can click on the measure tool and go down to structure count, and I can quickly kind of do a polygon around this fire area, and it'll tell me that there's 268 structures within that area. So that's a handy new tool that they've added in the last year or so. So these are some of the things that you guys can do in general in your own counties, own jurisdictions. And as far as our markers, I'll touch on markers real quick, and you'll see in the marker fields for evacuations, there's several here that we utilize very often. Notified, did not wait for response. So that's likely when you're doing a fire evacuation and flames are going across the road that you're driving on, and you're only using your high-low and your PA. Next one is no response, follow-up needed. And then of course, this is one that we see a lot of, and that's people that are evacuating. And we mark every resident, every driveway that we go into, generally with one of three, and that's evacuating. That means we've made contact with them and they've said, we're packing, we're leaving, or they're driving out of the driveway. Or in our county, we use a tagging system, which all of the citizens have, that says it's a Nomex tag that says evacuated, and they hang it on their mailbox or the end of their driveway. So if we see that, we're going to put a marker for evacuated. And then you have the yellow, which is needs assistance. So that could be medical, could be an animal, could be any number of things. So that requires some follow-up. Sheltering in place, this is another key one that we want to know about, because we legally can't make these people leave, but that's where we're going to go back to after the fire goes through and see if they are still there or not, or if we're looking for remains. Then unintended animals. Again, our county, rural, we have a lot of cows, a lot of horses, goats, so on and so forth. So, our policy is if we see that, we open up fences and gates and we let them fend for themselves, unless we have a animal evac team that's present that can come and is safe to do so to remove them. And then residents not accessible. So that may be that, trees are blown down, power lines are down, that sort of thing. And then no residents exists. We don't use that too often, just because we utilize our own GIS layers within SAR-Topo. And so that gives us a much more up-to-date look at what we're up against, and what kind of resources we're going to need for the evacuation. And of course, we always put a incident command post marker wherever that IC may be. And then you've got, we've added some road closure signs. There's, I believe there's soft residents only access, soft closure, and then hard closure. Typically in our county, and again, this varies county and jurisdiction, if we're shutting something down, we're typically doing hard closures. We don't do soft closures. So as far as markers go, there's a bunch of USAR markers. We utilize those once we go into the patrol aspect. Once the fires pass through and we're now responsible for the security of that area, we put SAR members in with deputies in the cars, and we start doing damage assessment. All of this is being live fed and streamed to our EOC. And so PG&E, our health department, our code enforcement, any of the public utilities that might be in that EOC, they're getting a live feed of what's happening out there. So they're getting a much better situational awareness of, what the damage is, what they're going to need to ramp up for, and that sort of thing. So with that, I want to kind of show you in our county how we do things. We have a template that we use, and we save this map. So anytime a fire pops off, we populate this, we name the fire with the date. And we have just rolled out a enterprise account, which all agencies in our county have SAR topo. So our county is the parent of the parent account, and then each agency is a sub team. So it doesn't really matter what agency starts an incident. If they call for mutual aid, all they have to do is move that map to the Nevada County parent, and all agencies have the exact same map. They can see where their resources are coming from, how many resources they have. So that's been super beneficial and very handy. And so as far as our preset, right off the bat, we typically use CHP, Grass Valley Police Department, and Nevada County Sheriff's Office. So we're tracking live with app tracks, what deputies are responding and what agencies are responding. And then we will put them in these particular folders. So at an IC, if anybody walks up from Grass Valley, let's say it's a captain, and says, I want to know what resources I have, I can quickly look at this folder and tell them who's on scene and where they're at. So if it was Nevada County, I want to know where 1 Paul 1 is, I can click on it and it'll show me exactly where he's at. So that's a handy feature, and it's a good resource list. And we just take that right off of the app tracks and we move it into a folder. And then the next three are most important, well, I shouldn't say most important. Most important is the safety of our deputies, and that's why we're live tracking them. But the next thing down is our data for our evacuated people. Any of our people that we don't have any contact with, nobody was home, and then of course sheltering in place. And I will show you what we utilize. Zone Haven, and Zone Haven is another software that is being rolled out in California, and I believe in some of the other states as well. And it basically breaks down your entire county into zones. They do a fairly good job at keeping it less than 1,000 residents or structures within a zone. So it is manageable in an evacuation process. And then it has different layers for evacuations. So this is just a layer that we added that kind of shows our whole county broken up into zones. And we can zoom into a zone and we can see that, this is zone E, Nevada County E099, and then 215, so on and so forth. So there's 285 zones within Nevada County. So that kind of gives us an idea of the zone. If I have a fire in zone 215, I'm going to populate that zone, and it automatically will give me an alphabetical list of every road within that zone. So situational awareness wise, and trying to utilize your resources in the most efficient and effective manner is really nice with live tracking app tracks, because I can see where my resources are coming from. I can see where the fire is. I can turn on my wind plot And at the same time, we're typically at an IC with a battalion chief that is giving us what he wants evacuated and how far out. The old days, it was, we used roads east of, west of, north, south, that sort of thing. Becomes very confusing over the radio. Where Zone Haven, it's a particular zone, and we know we have all of these roads that we have to clear and evacuate. So an important thing is, you know, typically it doesn't happen in the first hour. Usually it's, you know, hour 2, hour 3 is that we're going to set up a shelter. You know, how many people are affected? Do we need to stand up an evacuation shelter for animals? We typically use our fairgrounds for that. So I would be putting those things on the map as we see the need to stand those up, and the EOC sees that real time. They're putting out the evacuations as we put up the map, and if it's red, that means that it's evacuated. If it's I've got a yellow zone, that means it's a warning, and then a blue zone is just a notification to basically stand ready. So those are the 3 that we use. There are some others. There's green for repopulating. We're able to split zones. So if this bottom half of this, if this fire took off and went up through these zones, if we wanted to repopulate this half of the zone, we could split that zone, turn the bottom green, and we can now repopulate that area. So some of the things that Zone Haven does for us, it gives us all of our critical infrastructure information. Like, do we have any mobile home parks? Do we have any convalescent homes, any shelters, motels, hotels, hospitals, so on and so forth. So it gives us all of that information. So a planning aspect of it is, you know, do we have a convalescent home that we can't evacuate and we need to send some structure protection there? We can quickly say this particular hospital or convalescent hospital has 200 residents, and it's, you know, this particular size, and fire can determine how many resources they need to adequately protect that structure. So what we've found is that with the interoperability and a unified command with fire, they absolutely 99% of the time are looking at our map and not their maps, at least up in this area. CAL FIRE really loves SAR-Topo and its capabilities. So I do have a deputy out there driving around somewhere, and I think he just went on a call, so I think he turned his tracks off. I was going to show you if he was still driving around, but I think he's off. Yeah, he just shut him off. So this green line is a deputy that was driving around on these assignments. Typically, when you zoom in, and if I put structures on there, of course, this particular area has quite a few, you would see his track go in this driveway to this structure. So it's, even if they don't have time to drop a marker, we can tell what they've done and where they've done it. So again, from a IC point of view and a planning point of view, you get a real good picture of what was done and what still needs to be done. How many more resources do I need to bring in? And that first hour is typically utter chaos, because if you only have 5 deputies and you have this much area to cover, it's really difficult on a fast moving fire to do that. So it's typically high-low PA announcements. Once we bump out to the next zone, that's where we can do more door-to-door and actually walk up, knock on doors, and yell evacuations, sheriff's office evacuations, and try and get a little bit more cooperation from the public. At the same time, we're using Code Red, and we're putting out the reverse 911 notifications, and we do Zone Haven and the reverse 911 at the same exact time, so that anybody that's looking on a web page of Zone Haven or Code Red or any other places, like our county has a My Nevada County dashboard, they're going to see all of this, and that's all generated from the field, from the incident commander. So it's very timely, and Sartopo, in my opinion, does a fabulous job at collecting the data, and giving us that 30,000 foot view of what are we up against, what do we need to plan for, how many resources, where are we going to put all of these people, how, what roads do we need to shut down, make one way so that we can get people out. So these are all features that, any one of these we can change into a evacuation route, and we can also make that public. So it'll go out on Zone Haven as well as Code Red. And then oftentimes we will, if it's a 2 or 3 day, we will actually clean up this map and we will make this map public as well. But typically within the first operational period, our active map is only for our incident command and agencies that are helping out. So some of the satellite views, let's see if I can go out a little bit further and get rid of some of this stuff here. So we can look at active fires within the state, and we can zoom in and it will show us in live satellite. It'll give us the time and the date. It typically updates anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes is what I'm told. And so you've got multiple, you can do heat signatures. Modus gives you a little bit more pinpointing and gives you the time. Last year we had a fire called the Jones fire, and we had our IC set up. We were actively doing evacuations. We had cleared the entire evac zone, and we were essentially just watching the fire. On this map, one of these little spots ended up across the highway, across the river, up on a knoll, and we were able to tell CAL FIRE that they had a spot fire, and they argued that they did not. And how did we know? So we showed them, and they ended up sending 3 engines up there, and it was a 50-yard by about a 150-yard spot that was building and just starting to take off. So that really sold CAL FIRE on Sartopo and having the ability to see this information live satellites. And the question I keep hearing from them is, why don't we have this? Why does search and rescue have it? So, so I feel like we're doing a good thing. I know just looking at other counties, what they're doing with Zone Haven and Cal Topo, our sister counties, Sierra County, Placer County, Yuba County, it's very nice to have those layers on Sartopo. So if we're responding mutual aid, we can see exactly what we do, and we can apply that to our sister counties. And we can look at what kind of resources they need and what they're asking us to do. So it really gives us I'm sorry.
Quick question. Can you just so I understand, because we've used Modus, but what are you using the different fire activity satellite views for? I see that you said Modus was more precise. What are the other functions of the other?
So GOES is heat signatures, and Michael, you might be able to chime in a little bit more on this, but there's actual heat, which is a little bit broader. It gives a box view, and let me just.
I have actually have Matt Jacobs on the call, and I don't know if he's in a position to speak up, but Matt, do you want to explain that? And then for any further questions, please put them in the chat box. So I'll go ahead and explain it. The GOES heat detections are a little bit old, and I'm just going to say that they do different things, but there is one view, and I can't remember exactly which one it is. I think it's virus fire progression, or it might be GOES heat, that gives you about a every 6 minute update. And I've had a similar experience like Jerry on a type 3 incident management team, watching a fire roll in an area that, was moving so fast. Those people that were operations and divisions on the fire did not see, we were ahead of them based on the intel provided by the heat layer. But that's a good question. I'll try to get it answered here before the end of the call. And then Jerry, go ahead and continue if you're not done. I do have some questions for you if you're ready.
Go ahead.
So just overall, in a broad sense, what do you think the role of SAR volunteers that you've utilized them in Nevada County? What are the different roles that they've taken to support fire evacuations in your department?
So the different roles that we have and how we operate is when CAL FIRE, our duty officers are on the ECC text list. So anytime there's a full wildland dispatch, we get that text. And typically by the time I read it, turn on the radio, I'm just starting to hear the tone outs for the engines to go to that incident. And so we immediately, when we get that text, we create a map. Our policy in our county is that our deputies respond, a sergeant and at least one other deputy respond to the fire to create the IC. In the background, we create the map, and then we activate our evacuation team. And those folks respond to our SAR cache. And then we have a quick response. It's a quick response sprinter van or a pickup truck that acts as a mobile IC. And so we typically staff that with 3 people, one for operations to assist the deputy, one for plans, and then one as a tactical dispatcher. The rest of the team stays at our SAR cache, and that is our planning. So they're processing all of the data. They're acting as the liaison to the EOC. That's in the first, 30 to 60 minutes of a fire. We typically have anywhere from 15 to 45 people show up. So we're able to mobilize really, really quick. If we do have excess people, we will stick them, if it's possible, we will stick them and double them up with a deputy. And so they are in the patrol car doing the evacuations, and their sole responsibility is to run the CalTopo app and collect the data. So as they're pulling into driveways, they're marking it, they're adding addresses, they're adding vehicle information, whatever they can add to help with the process later on. They're, if they go by a house that is, completely engulfed or is completely demolish, they're going to use those USAR markers, and they're trained to try and assess and document as they're doing evacuations. So that's kind of the 3 levels of what our SAR team, how our SAR team plays a role in the evacuation process. The one thing that we do not do is road closures, because people, what we found, at least in our neck of the woods, they will run you over and they will not stop. So we leave that to CHP, and that's kind of where we're at with that.
Thank you, Jerry. So I do have an answer to the questions as far as the heat detection layers. And the GOES 1617 is the live fire that's updated every several minutes by satellite, and can give you a good idea of where the fire is going. And I think that, in combination with the wind plot, is really helpful to see what's give you intelligence about where the fire is likely to go. The Sentinel is also another good way. It's kind of a satellite view of the fire, and also gives you a lot of good and excellent situational awareness and up-to-date information. Jerry, next question is, for training your volunteers, just kind of briefly review your wildland fire evacuation training that you provide to get them ready.
So currently, Nevada County Consolidated Fire Department, along with CAL FIRE, provides a 6-hour training on basically the what to do and what not to do while you're doing evacuations. For example, in a vehicle, in our terrain, drainages on a road are a bad place to be. Fires typically run up drainages. So if you have to, the safest place is in your vehicle, on a knoll, or on an outside ridge. We currently have a grant in progress for Nomex and fire shelters. We don't have them, nor do our deputies have them at this point, but we're hoping that we will have, we're trained in them, but we don't actually have them yet. So we're hoping by July that will arrive, and we will have better protection for all of our folks.
Excellent. And just to give a different perspective, we're certainly not as sophisticated as Nevada County in our fire evacuation, but certainly working hard to get there. We do have 30 sets of Nomex PPE for our SAR members. We have a similar plan as far as assisting patrol with evacuations. But we have a difference between evacuation warning and order. And our goal is to have our volunteers work within evacuation warning areas, but where there is imminent danger and fire threat, such as an evacuation order, that would just be patrol officers. But fires are very dynamic, things change. But I think a lot of SAR teams are just getting to that place. With that, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I really appreciate Nevada County and Jerry Weidler for putting this presentation together. So one question we had, and I think a lot of them have been answered. We had Matt Jacobs in the chat box for a moment there. New question here. How is Zone Haven integrated with SAR-Topo?
So go ahead.
And another follow-up question, can you go over Zone Haven? So similar questions, but how do you overlay the Zone Haven layers onto your CalTopo map?
So we just, we basically take the polygons out of the Zone Haven data file, and we import them as a layer. As far as the actual assignments, unfortunately, I am not that technical person to tell you exactly how they did it, but somehow they were able to take within a polygon, pull all of the roads and populate assignments as you see alphabetically. And so we keep a file on each laptop or computer in each of the vehicles that we import those zones from that file. And the reason we did that is because Zonehaven is, new in the last, 16, 18 months. And we have seen some changes in zones where a particular fire district will say, hey, we found out that this road goes through, there may be some sort of change. So it's easier for us to change it on a file than it is to go through that whole process in Sartopo. So if I'm at home or on my phone somewhere, I have the files on both my phone and my laptop, so I can do this from anywhere, and it's very, very efficient and very quick. The other thing I forgot to mention is as we're rolling out this enterprise with our agencies, the agencies, for example, Truckee Police Department, they are putting it on their mobile data terminals in the vehicle and utilizing the GPS in that MDT. And that's how they're viewing this versus our deputies. They're using county issued iPhones, and that's their main platform because our MDTs don't have GPS capabilities. So there is that option for your county to have that, and it's much nicer looking at a bigger screen, I can tell you that. For
sure. Well, thank you very much, Jerry. I can see that other counties such as Douglas County in Nevada and Santa Barbara County, have been using CalTopo in similar ways. It seems like different teams, depending on their county, are a little bit different. But zones are set up by the SAR user, not already made. And I think they're actually not set up by the SAR user. And I have some additional information because we're breaking through some technical walls. For Marin County, we were able to get the shape files that create Zonehaven because they're changing the zones in our area as well. And we found a way that when they change them in Zonehaven, they'll automatically update on our CalTopo layer for Zonehaven. And we also recently, working with our Zonehaven administrator, have the ability of when a county flips a zone for evacuation warning or evacuation order, that will auto update onto CalTopo. If you have specific interest in that, you can reach out directly to me and I will work to get you the information. We just kind of figured that out today, and be happy to help you guys out. And I just put my email into the chat. Any other questions related to what we're doing? And you can ask openly now. All right. With that, this will be recorded and we should have it up on our MRA Third Thursday YouTube channel in about a week. I'd really like to thank Jerry Weidler with Nevada County Sheriff's Office for coming on tonight and the great audience we had. And everybody have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you.